Behind the glamour and flashing lights of Hollywood lies a shadow world few ever see. While fans adore their favorite stars and publicists polish every headline, the truth about some of entertainment's most beloved icons is far darker than anyone imagined. Today, we're peeling back the curtain to reveal the chilling private lives of celebrities whose public images were built on illusion. Their real stories hidden behind carefully crafted smiles. From Golden Age legends to modern stars secretly feared or despised by those who worked with them. These revelations will forever change how you see these famous faces. What makes these stories so shocking isn't just the behavior itself, but the incredible lengths these stars went to in order to maintain their perfect image. The lies, the cover-ups, and the code of silence that protected them show just how deep Hollywood's darkness can go. It begins with America's most beloved Christmas crooner, a man whose voice filled homes with warmth, even as his own house was ruled by fear and cruelty. Every December, Bing Crosby's smooth, comforting voice drifts through radios and speakers, wrapping America in nostalgia. His easy smile and fatherly charm made him seem like the very image of goodness and decency. But behind that calm, gentle exterior was a man his own children barely recognized. Dad was not the man America thought he was, confessed Gary Crosby, Bing's eldest son, in a memoir that shattered his father's reputation. According to Gary and his brothers, life in the Crosby home was defined by rigid rules, icy emotional distance, and violent punishments. Bing's belt was his weapon of choice. The boys were weighed weekly, beaten if they gained even a pound, and forced to address their father as Sir. The public saw a warm family gathered around a piano at Christmas. The reality was a house ruled by fear. Studio executives knew the truth, but they worked hard to protect their star. The illusion had to stay intact. Those cheerful Christmas specials were performances in the truest sense, a carefully crafted fantasy, built on suffering and silence, while the world welcomed Bing Crosby into their homes as the perfect father figure. His own children lived through years of torment. Hidden behind the picturesque gates of the Crosby estate, another man, whose image could not have been further from reality, was Charlie Chaplin. To millions, Chaplin's little tramp was the embodiment of innocence and charm, a symbol of humanity, laughter, and love. But behind the mustache and bowler hat was a man with dark obsessions that would destroy reputations in any other era. Chaplin's pattern of behavior was unmistakable. His first wife, Mildred Harris, was just 16 when he married her. His second, Lita Gray, was only 15 when their relationship began and 16 when they wed after she became pregnant. In today's world, his actions would have ended his career instantly. But early Hollywood was built on silence and protection. Chaplin was powerful, and powerful men were shielded. Studios paid off families, silenced reporters, and buried scandals. During his divorce from Lita Gray, she accused him of emotional cruelty, sexual coercion, and manipulation so disturbing that even the court documents were considered shocking for the 1920s. A film historian later summed it up simply: the studio system enabled his behavior. They saw it as the cost of keeping a genius happy. Chaplin's pattern stretched across decades. He pursued girls barely out of childhood, using his fame to access those who were too young and too powerless to resist. His art celebrated innocence, even as his private life corrupted it. Marlon Brando, one of the greatest actors in history, brought emotional truth to every role he played. But in his real life, that truth was replaced by chaos. His family story reads like a tragedy written for the screen, filled with neglect, addiction, violence, and grief that would destroy the lives of his children. Brando fathered at least 11 children with multiple women, but he was rarely present for any of them. Those who knew the family described his parenting style as one of total absence, physically, emotionally, and morally. His son Christian spiraled into addiction and rage, growing up without structure or stability. In 1990, that spiral turned deadly when Christian shot and killed Dag Drolet, the boyfriend of his half-sister Cheyenne, inside the Brando family home. The murder was said to have been sparked by claims that Drolet had been abusive. But the tragedy didn't end there. Cheyenne, already struggling with depression, was so traumatized that she never recovered. Her mental health collapsed completely, and 5 years later, she took her own life in Tahiti at just 25 years old. Marlon Brando was devastated, but even he admitted that he had failed his children. "I don't think I was much of a father," he said later. "Actors don't make good fathers, because they're never home." The man who could express such deep emotion on screen could not do the same in real life, and the result was destruction. Few stories of Hollywood tragedy cut as deep as that of Judy Garland. America fell in love with her as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, a bright-eyed girl singing that dreams really do come true somewhere over the rainbow. But by the time she sang that song, she was already trapped in a nightmare. The studio that owned her MGM had turned her into a product. To control her weight and energy, they gave her pills, amphetamines, to stay awake and keep thin, then barbiturates to sleep. She was just 13 years old. Studio head Louis B. Mayer and his team obsessed over her appearance, mocking her as the little hunchback and forcing her to follow punishing schedules. Doctors on the payroll wrote whatever prescriptions the executives wanted. Garland became dependent on pills before she was old enough to drive. By 18, she was a full-blown addict, fragile, exhausted, and still expected to perform flawlessly. She tried to break free, but the damage was done. Her adult years were marked by addiction, failed marriages, and hospital stays. Even during her legendary comebacks, she was battling the dependency that MGM had created. When Judy Garland died at just 47, officially from an accidental overdose, many believed it was the final act of a tragedy that began in a Hollywood dressing room, the story of a child star destroyed by the very studio that made her famous. Another star who lived a double life was Rock Hudson. To the public, he was the ultimate leading man, tall, strong, and impossibly handsome. Women adored him, and men wanted to be him. But behind that perfect image was a secret that at the time could have ended everything. Rock Hudson was gay, forced by the studio system to live in fear and deception. His agent and Universal Studios arranged fake dates with actresses, staged photo ops, and even set up a sham marriage to protect his image. For years, Hudson lived two lives, one public, one hidden. Even in private homes, a friend recalled, he was terrified someone might talk. He never got to relax and just be himself. In 1985, that secret was exposed in the most devastating way possible. Hudson became one of the first major celebrities to die of AIDS, a disease that in those days was met with fear, stigma, and hatred. His illness forced the world to confront not only the AIDS crisis, but also the cruelty of a system that had made him hide who he was. The revelation came too late for Rock Hudson to find peace, but it changed public awareness forever. Loretta Young's story was one of Hollywood's most elaborate secrets. Known for her grace, faith, and virtuous roles, she was seen as a symbol of morality in a scandal-driven industry. But in 1935, while filming The Call of the Wild, she became pregnant by her married co-star, Clark Gable. The affair and pregnancy threatened to destroy her career and reputation. In that era, an unwed mother, especially a Catholic actress with a good girl image, would have been finished. So Loretta devised a plan so daring it could have been written for a movie. She disappeared from public view for months, gave birth in secret, and then arranged to adopt her own child years later. To the world, it looked like a charitable act, a movie star taking in a child in need. In truth, it was her daughter. Only decades later did the truth emerge. Long after both Loretta Young and Clark gobble, were gone. The depth of deception required to protect her reputation speaks volumes about the cruel expectations of old Hollywood, where image meant everything. And truth was a luxury no one could afford, from Bing Crosby's violent home to Judy Garland's forced addiction. From Chaplin's predatory behavior to Rock Hudson's life of secrecy. These stories reveal the other side of fame, the darkness that thrives beneath the glitter of the spotlight. The smiles, the songs, the silver screen fantasies, they were all masks. And behind them were real people, broken by the very system that made them legends. Behind the glamour and bright lights of Hollywood lies a shadow world that few ever glimpse. While fans see red carpets, flawless smiles, and glittering success, the truth is often darker than anyone could imagine. Publicists carefully craft perfect images, issuing statements designed to protect reputations and maintain illusions. Yet behind those walls of perfection are stories of pain, deception, secret lives that stand in stark contrast to the glowing public personas of some of the most beloved stars. From Golden Age legends to modern icons, loathed by the very people who work with them. These stories reveal a chilling truth. Fame often hides more than it reveals. What makes these revelations truly shocking is not just the behavior itself, but how successfully these stars manage to maintain their carefully built images, while living completely different lives behind closed doors. The elaborate deceptions, the industry cover-ups, and the code of silence that protected them will make you question everything you thought you knew about. Hollywood's brightest names. It begins with America's beloved Christmas crooner, a man whose wholesome, family-friendly image hid a household ruled by fear and cruelty. Bing Crosby's warm voice fills homes every December, his signature song White Christmas still echoing through generations as a symbol of comfort and nostalgia. His easy smile and effortless charm made him seem like everyone's kindly uncle, the perfect image of mid-century American decency. But behind the music and charm was a side of Crosby that few knew. One his own children would later describe as terrifying. Gary Crosby, Bing's eldest son, shattered the illusion in his memoir, revealing a home defined by strict rules, violence, and emotional coldness. Bing, he wrote, was a disciplinarian to the extreme, using his belt as a weapon of choice. The children were forced to live under harsh routines, even being weighed weekly and punished if they gained a single pound. The smiling family performances on television were just that, performances. Studio executives and publicists worked tirelessly to maintain his spotless reputation, suppressing whispers of abuse and portraying Crosby as the ideal family man. The boys had to call him sir and stand at attention when he entered the room, recalled one family friend. To the public, he was the face of American warmth. To his sons, he was a cold authoritarian, while America invited him into their homes every Christmas. His own family lived in fear behind closed doors. The same disturbing contrast between image and reality could be found in the life of Charlie Chaplin, one of cinema's most celebrated geniuses. His character, the little tramp, embodied innocence, humor, and the underdog spirit, a man who made the world laugh through hardship. Yet off-screen Chaplin's behavior was far from innocent. He had a long, well-documented pattern of pursuing teenage girls, often barely out of childhood. His first wife, Mildred Harris, was just 16 when they married. He was 29. His second wife, Lita Gray, was 15 when their relationship began and 16 when they married after she became pregnant. Chaplin's fame gave him immense power, and he used it to exploit vulnerable young women chasing dreams of stardom. During his divorce from Lita Gray, court records described degrading acts and emotional manipulation that shocked even the 1920s public. When she resisted his demands, Chaplin threatened to destroy her career. The studios handled everything quietly, arranging payments and settlements. hiding the truth behind the myth of the creative genius. They saw it as the cost of keeping Chaplin productive, one film historian later noted. Even when his affair with aspiring actress Joan Barry led to a public scandal and a paternity suit, studios worked to shield him. Blood tests proved he wasn't the father, but the court ordered him to pay child support anyway. The damage to his reputation was irreversible. While Chaplin's films remain beloved, the man behind them lived a life of manipulation, using fame and influence to prey on the vulnerable for decades. Another Hollywood icon, Marlon Brando, changed acting forever with his raw performances in A Streetcar Named Desire and The Godfather. But his personal life was marked by chaos and tragedy that destroyed his family from within. Though admired for his emotional depth on screen, Brando was an absent and inconsistent father off it. He fathered at least 11 children with multiple women but rarely stayed involved in their lives. His lack of boundaries and parental guidance led to devastating consequences. In 1990, his son Christian shot and killed Dag Drolet, the boyfriend of his half-sister Cheyenne, inside the Brando family mansion. Christian claimed Drolet had been abusing Cheyenne, but the act landed him 10 years in prison for manslaughter. Cheyenne, already struggling with depression and mental health issues, was shattered by the incident. She took her own life 5 years later at just 25. Those close to the family said Brando was consumed by guilt, but understood his role in the destruction. He created a world where his children had everything except stability, a friend said. There were no boundaries, no parenting, only chaos. Brando himself later admitted, "I think I failed as a father." Actors don't make good fathers because they're always away. I wasn't much of one. Another story of pain masked by perfection is that of Judy Garland, the beloved star who sang her way into America's heart as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. Her youthful innocence made her a symbol of hope. But behind the camera, she was trapped in a cycle of exploitation and addiction, one created by the very studio that made her famous. MGM began giving Garland pills when she was only 13, amphetamines to keep her awake and thin, and barbiturates to help her sleep. Studio executives constantly criticized her body, calling her fat and hunchbacked, forcing her into a chemically fueled existence that she never escaped by her late teens. Garland was fully dependent on drugs. Doctors on MGM's payroll prescribed whatever the studio demanded to keep her working. They weren't treating illnesses, a former assistant said. They were managing assets. As her career soared, her health collapsed. Failed marriages, erratic behavior, and multiple suicide attempts followed. When she died at 47 from an overdose, it was officially ruled accidental. But those who knew her called it the inevitable result of years of abuse disguised as career management. The same system that turned her into a star had destroyed her from within. Rock Hudson, another pillar of Hollywood's golden age, lived a different kind of tragedy, one of enforced secrecy. To the world, Hudson was the perfect leading man, tall, handsome, masculine, and effortlessly charming. But his entire career was built on a lie. In an era when homosexuality was criminalized, Hudson, who was gay, was forced by studios to live a double life. His agent and Universal Studios created elaborate cover stories, fake relationships, staged dates with actresses, even a marriage arranged purely for publicity. Privately, Hudson lived in constant fear. Even in his own home, he worried someone might talk. A friend later said, "The stress of maintaining that lie took a deep toll." Then, in 1985, the secret the studios had fought to hide for decades was revealed in the worst possible way. Rock Hudson became one of the first major celebrities to die of AIDS. His death shocked America, forcing a new conversation about the disease and about the human cost of living and hiding. Though he never lived to see a world more accepting of who he truly was, his death changed public awareness forever. Loretta Young's story, too, was one of illusion and secrecy. Known for her grace and moral image, she was the embodiment of virtue in 1930s Hollywood. But off-screen, she harbored a secret that would remain hidden for decades. During the filming of The Call of the Wild in 1935, she had an affair with her married co-star, Clark Gable. When she discovered she was pregnant, she faced ruin. A single unwed pregnancy would have ended her career and reputation. Her solution was as heartbreaking as it was ingenious. She went into hiding, gave birth in secret, and later adopted her own biological daughter, pretending to rescue an orphan. The truth only surfaced long after her death, when her daughter discovered who her real parents were, finally. There was Chevy Chase, a man who made millions laugh but who was notoriously cruel behind the scenes. As the star of Saturday Night Live and countless comedies, Chase became a household name for his sharp wit and slapstick humor. But his colleagues saw a different side: arrogant, volatile, and often vicious. Fellow cast members described him as impossible to work with, belittling crew members and mocking colleagues during rehearsals. The charm that dazzled audiences turned into cruelty when the cameras stopped rolling. Despite repeated public controversies and damaged relationships, Chase's fame protected him for years. Eventually, however, his reputation caught up with him, and he found himself isolated, a tragic reminder that even comedy's brightest stars can harbor deep bitterness. These stories remind us that Hollywood's sheen is often just a mask. The smiling faces on magazine covers, the laughter on screen, the voices that comfort generations, all can hide unimaginable pain. Behind every perfect image lies a human being shaped by power, temptation, and pressure. For some, the burden of fame twists into cruelty. For others, it leads to isolation, addiction, or despair. The stars we admire often lived double lives, trapped between the fantasy the world demanded and the reality they could never escape. And so, when the cameras stop rolling and the stage lights fade, what remains is not the legend, but the truth that even in Hollywood, the brightest lights can cast the darkest shadows.